do both plant and animal cells manage the process of cell division? Both types of cells undergo cell division for growth and repair. However, animal cells typically contain centrioles involved in forming the spindle fibers during mitosis, while plant cells lack centrioles. Explain how both plant and animal cells achieve homeostasis. Both types of cells maintain internal balance by regulating internal conditions, such as pH, temperature, and osmotic pressure. They do this through various mechanisms, including ion channels, pumps, and osmoregulation. Discuss the differences in the role of the Golgi apparatus in plant and animal cells. The Golgi apparatus in both plant and animal cells modifies, sorts, and packages proteins and lipids. In plant cells, it's involved in synthesizing cell wall components, while in animal cells, it plays a role in forming lysosomes. Explain the significance of chloroplasts in plant cells and their absence in animal cells. Chloroplasts in plant cells perform photosynthesis, converting light energy into chemical energy. Their absence in animal cells limits their ability to produce energy directly from sunlight, as they rely on ingesting organic matter for energy. How do plant and animal cells differ in their response to environmental changes? Plant cells often exhibit physical adaptations such as altering stomatal openings or changing leaf orientation to respond to environmental factors like light intensity, water availability, and temperature, while animal cells may regulate internal processes to adapt to external changes. Discuss the similarities and differences in the genetic material of plant and animal cells. Both plant and animal cells contain DNA organized into chromosomes in their nuclei. However, plant cells may have chloroplasts and mitochondria that contain their own DNA, which animal cells lack. Explain the role of peroxisomes in both plant and animal cells and how their functions may differ. Peroxisomes in both types of cells are involved in various metabolic processes, including the breakdown of fatty acids. However, their specific functions might differ slightly due to the specialized needs of each cell type. How do both plant and animal cells utilize membrane-bound organelles for specialized functions? Both types of cells use various organelles, such as the endoplasmic reticulum, mitochondria, and lysosomes, to perform specialized functions like protein synthesis, energy production, and waste management, albeit with some structural and functional differences. Discuss the differences in the mechanisms of locomotion between plant and animal cells. Animal cells may utilize structures like cilia, flagella, or specialized muscle cells for movement, while plant cells lack these structures and mainly rely on growth responses and changes in cell turgor pressure for movement. Explain the differences in reproduction between plant and animal cells. Both plant and animal cells undergo mitosis for growth and repair. However, plant cells can also undergo cytokinesis via a cell plate formation during cell division, while animal cells generally perform cytokinesis through a cleavage furrow. Discuss the role of microtubule organizing centers in plant and animal cells. Animal cells typically have centrosomes, acting as microtubule organizing centers that contain centrioles involved in forming spindle fibers during cell division. Plant cells lack centrioles but still organize microtubules for cell division. Explain how plant and animal cells regulate their internal pH levels. Answer: both types of cells maintain pH homeostasis through various mechanisms involving ion channels, proton pumps, and buffers. Plant cells might also adjust pH by modifying the activity of proton pumps in the tonoplast of the central vacuole. Discuss the differences in their responses to stimuli between plant and animal cells. Plant cells might respond to stimuli through tropisms, growth movements, and changes in stomatal openings. Animal cells often respond to stimuli through nerve impulses, muscular contractions, and hormonal signals. Explain the differences in the structures and functions of ribosomes in plant and animal cells. Ribosomes, in both types of cells, are involved in protein synthesis. However, plant cells often have slightly larger ribosomes compared to animal cells, reflecting variations in protein synthesis rates and specific functions related to plant biology. Discuss the adaptations of both plant and animal cells to extreme environmental conditions. Plant cells may adapt to extreme conditions like high salinity by accumulating compatible solutes or altering lipid composition. While animal cells might undergo changes in metabolism or employ physiological mechanisms to regulate osmotic balance. Explain how both plant and animal cells communicate and interact within their respective multicellular organisms. Both cell types communicate via chemical signals, but animal cells often utilize nerve impulses and specialized receptor cells for rapid communication, while plant cells rely on signaling molecules and plasmodesmata for slower, systemic communication. Discuss the differences in the mechanisms of cell movement between plant and animal cells. Animal cells often move through various means like amoeboid movement, ciliary action, or muscle contraction, while plant cells lack these mechanisms but can change their shapes through turgor pressure adjustments and growth. Explain how both plant and animal cells manage cellular waste. Plant cells store waste materials, such as toxins or unused metabolites, in their central vacuoles or deposit them in specialized structures like resins or bark. Animal cells typically use lysosomes for the breakdown and recycling of cellular waste. Explain the significance of cell-to-cell communication in plant and animal cells. Both plant and animal cells utilize cell-to-cell communication for coordination and response to external stimuli. Plant cells communicate via plasmodesmata, allowing direct passage of molecules, while animal cells use gap junctions or chemical signaling. Discuss how both plant and animal cells respond to infection or injury. Plant cells might activate defense mechanisms like producing phytoalexins or strengthening cell walls against pathogens, whereas animal cells respond by releasing chemical signals for immune responses or clotting mechanisms to heal wounds. Discuss the role of lipids in the plasma membrane of plant and animal cells. The plasma membrane of both cells contains lipids that form a barrier between the internal and external environments. However, plant cell membranes often contain more unsaturated fatty acids, which contribute to their ability to adapt to temperature fluctuations. Discuss the differences in their responses to environmental cues between plant and animal cells. Plant cells might respond to light, gravity, and touch by altering growth patterns or adjusting stomatal openings. Animal cells often respond to sensory stimuli such as light, sound, and temperature by initiating nerve impulses or biochemical reactions. Explain the differences in the modes of nutrition between plant and animal cells. Plant cells are autotrophic, capable of synthesizing their own food through photosynthesis using sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide. Animal cells are heterotrophic, relying on consuming other organisms or organic matter for nutrients. Discuss the structural differences in the cytoskeleton of plant and animal cells and their functional implications. Both plant and animal cells have a cytoskeleton composed of microtubules and microfilaments. Animal cells typically have a more dynamic cytoskeleton, aiding in movement, while plant cells use it mainly for structural support and organelle positioning. Explain the role of endocytosis and exocytosis in both plant and animal cells. Both types of cells utilize endocytosis to take in substances by forming vesicles from the plasma membrane. Exocytosis involves releasing substances from the cell through vesicles merging with the plasma membrane, enabling secretion or expulsion of materials. Discuss the differences in their energy storage mechanisms between plant and animal cells. Plant cells store excess energy as starch in chloroplasts or as sugars in the central vacuole, while animal cells store energy primarily as glycogen in the cytoplasm or liver tissues. Explain the differences in the mechanisms of cell motility between plant and animal cells. Animal cells exhibit various modes of motility involving structures like cilia, flagella, or muscle contractions. Plant cells lack such structures but may show movement through growth responses and cytoplasmic streaming. Explain the differences in cell adhesion mechanisms between plant and animal cells. Plant cells often utilize specialized proteins like pectins and hemicelluloses in the cell wall for adhesion, while animal cells have a diverse array of adhesion molecules such as integrins and cadherins in the plasma membrane facilitating cell-to-cell interactions. Discuss the differences in the organization of the cytoplasm and organelles between plant and animal cells. Plant cells have a more centralized vacuole, centrally positioned nucleus, and a greater abundance of plastids, while animal cells typically have multiple smaller vacuoles, a centrally located nucleus, and a higher diversity of lysosomes and centrioles. Explain the differences in the types of tissues and their organization in plant and animal organisms. Plant tissues include dermal, vascular, and ground tissues, organized into roots, stems, and leaves, while animal tissues consist of epithelial, connective, muscle, and nervous tissues forming organs and organ systems.